All right, we got a great guest here. Dave Helman is in studio. He has covered the NFL and the Cowboys. I don't know how you deal with covering the Cowboys, man. Oh my gosh!
It's an adventure.
Let's get started. Every show here, all day, it's Cowboys.
Of course.
You're the perfect guy to bring in. What's like the spiciest angle you like? Is it CeeDee Lamb unhappy? Is it Dak not having a future deal? Is it McCarthy being lame duck? Like, there's a lot of fun angles.
For me, and I know we give too much oxygen to the quarterbacks, but in the case of the Cowboys, I think it has to be Dak Prescott, because the way I keep framing it is, the rest of this is all very normal, right? Like, it's normal to have a coach in a contract year. It's normal to have your wide receiver holding out for more money. Like, that's happening around the league. Brandon Ayuk and Jamar Chase are doing it. It happens. It's unprecedented for your franchise quarterback to not have a deal and also have the leverage to leave if he wants to. And I think that is what people need to remember. This is different because Dak Prescott has a no-tag clause. He's got a no-trade clause. The Cowboys can't keep him there if they don't sign him. So when this season gets going, I think we would all agree it's very rare to see a deal get done in season. So what? We're 2 weeks out from the start of the season, and if Dak doesn't have a deal, you can go ahead and assume he's going to hit free agency in March at the age of 31 with an all-pro to his name, and I just think it's going to be a free agent market that we've rarely seen before.
Well, it's weird because I forget who it was. Somebody up here was like, oh, Dak's going to have all these options, the Raiders and maybe the Giants and all this stuff. And I'm like, I like Dak. I think he's been a good quarterback. I'm a little higher on him than most people. I don't see any team out there saying, hey, let's pay this guy. Let's bring him and pay him $55 million a year to be our quarterback. When you can't build a team around a guy like that, it's a lot tougher. Do you really think the market will be that robust for Dak?
How about 60 instead?
Oh,
yeah, I do. I really do. And we only have to look back to 2018. And it might not have been a robust market in the number of teams. I do think sometimes we get swept up and we exaggerate the number of teams, because there's not going to be a large number of teams that both have the money and have the willingness and don't have a quarterback already in the pipeline. But even if we're talking about 4 teams, I mean, think back to 2018. I believe the New York Jets were in on Kirk Cousins. Obviously, the Minnesota Vikings were in on Kirk Cousins as well, and they were willing to guarantee him every dime of his contract. I think it was 3 years, $84 million, something like that. That was 6 years. Now go for inflation. And teams are desperate for quarterback play. It's easy if you're a Cowboy fan who doubts Dak, or if you don't like Dak, to say, well, he can't get over the hump. You know how many teams would kill to win 36 regular season games over 3 years? That is a fantastic record, regardless of what happens in the playoffs. And the Carolina Panthers and the New York Giants and the Las Vegas Raiders, these are teams that would kill for the success that Dak Prescott has had. Even if it hasn't been good enough, it's a nice starting point. So yes, I do think teams will want that.
You got the NFL on Fox podcast. You've been covering the league. If you're building a team, Dave Helman, would you say, I'm going to draft a quarterback every year, or would you go the route of, I'm going to pay for an established guy?
I mean, draft and develop is just time and time again been shown as the way to do it. That's a good question. I mean, I think there's a couple different philosophies there. I love, it was Ron Wolf, the legendary GM of the Packers, that basically drafted a quarterback late in the draft every year. And the analogy I love is you're buying a lotto ticket. It's low cost, high reward. So I do think you should always have a developmental guy in there. But again, and I don't know what would happen if Dak actually hits the market, but the Raiders are such a fantastic reference point, because I really think the Raiders are ready to compete right now if they had a quarterback. They got one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. The offensive line is solid. You got Devontae Adams. You got these 2 young tight ends. I'm not trying to tell anybody the Raiders would be the best team in the league, but if you put Dak Prescott on that team, they're capable of winning double-digit games. I don't think that's a stretch at all.
No, I think that sounds good. But from a financial standpoint, can they go from paying Minshew and Aiden O'Connell nothing to 60 to Dak?
It becomes problematic. Yeah. It becomes hard to do, but I do think you can do it. I mean, teams show us all the time that you can make the financials work however you want to. Is it going to put stress on your cap? Is it going to make it harder to hold on to guys? Of course, but I think it's a problem you're willing to figure out if your quarterback is capable of winning 10-plus games a year.
Like the Falcons going after Kirk Cousins, they have almost all their skill position guys are on the cheap, right? Drake London, Pitts, Bijan, all super cheap. So I think they can afford it. I mean, that Devontae Adams contract is massive.
And it limits, I think in this day and age, you can afford to have 2 to 4 mega contracts. And I mean, since we're talking about the Raiders, you got Max Crosby, you got Christian Wilkins, and you would have Devontae. If you were to add Dak to that team, you better be drafting successfully, consistently to be able to afford everything. But I do think NFL front offices can manage this. And like I said, it's a good headache to have. I believe it was Brian Gutekunst in Green Bay. They paid Jordan Love, and he basically said, this is going to be a challenge for us, but it's a problem I'll take over not knowing who my quarterback is every time.
That's a great point. Do you think, and again, I don't know how your relationship with Jerry is, whether you guys are text buddies or whatever, but I do have to ask, like, how much do you think the playoff losses to Brock Purdy I think they lost to Jimmy Garoppolo a few years ago in the playoffs.
In 21, yeah.
Yeah. Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, and Jordan Love beat the Cowboys. None of those guys were high-paid guys. Brock Purdy, last pick in the draft. How much of that do you think is fueling Jerry's like, man, we're moving on?
I mean, I think you have to assume that the playoff failures have hurt Jerry and are motivating some of this. Otherwise, somebody would have a new deal. Somebody would, right? Like, you either sign Dak because you think that's good enough, or at the very least, Mike McCarthy would have a new deal. Coaches' salaries, coaches' contracts don't affect the salary cap. So, like, there's no competitive reason why Mike McCarthy can't have a new deal right now other than disappointment at how the playoffs have gone. So, yes, I think we make a mistake trying to set an arbitrary goal like, Dak and Mike have to win a playoff game. They have to get to the NFC title game. I think Jerry Jones is the only one that knows specifically what it needs to look like. But one of these guys would have a deal if Jerry Jones was completely satisfied by what had happened.
Yeah, and I like how you phrase that, what it would look like. Like, let's say they play a first-round playoff game against the Lions and lose 42-41 in a thriller on the last-second field goal by Detroit. Like, that's not the worst result in the world. Detroit's like a Super Bowl team. I'm sure you're sick of Cowboys questions. One more. There is a big disconnect between the narrative, TV shows, web, podcasts. The sky is falling in Dallas. It's nearly over. Whereas you go to Vegas and look at the gambling odds, and it's like, they have a high win total, and they're favored in 13 games, and they've won 12 games each of the last 3 years. That's a big, dramatic disconnect. I mean, you got guys like Cowherd saying no playoffs for the Cowboys.
I saw that. I did see that from Colin.
Vegas is saying like the opposite. But anyways, I'm curious your thoughts.
I do think, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. It's the biggest brand. It's the most polarizing team. Nobody has a lukewarm opinion about Dallas, and I think people lose the plot a little bit. And I've said this. The Cowboys are still a good team. I think they're a playoff team. Maybe not win the division because they got to deal with the Eagles, but I think they're a playoff team. But what the question is, and it goes back to what we were just talking about, is it good enough for everybody to keep their jobs? Like, are they better than the team that didn't come close last year? And I don't think they are. I don't think this is a better team than the one that Green Bay bounced out of the playoffs. I will say, ironically, and we were just talking about this during the break, I feel better about the Cowboys in the last 10 days than I did all offseason, because now we're in camp, and first you get to training camp. Tyler Guyton, the rookie left tackle, looks fantastic in the preseason. The young center, Cooper Beebe, playing well, and you're like, okay, like the offensive line might not be an issue. Then they go out and sign Carl Lawson, the veteran pass rusher. They just signed Linval Joseph to help their run game. I'm not trying to say that these moves are going to put them over the top, but they are finally addressing things that have been concerning me all offseason long. Go figure. Jerry Jones waiting till the very last minute.
Maybe the next move is Dalvin Cook added to the running back.
I would like to see them add a running back. I don't know if it's Dalvin Cook, but I do think that's an area where they could stand to improve.
All right, we got less than a minute to play. One other question. Are the New York Giants the worst team in football or just a dumpster fire? Because you know the NFC East well.
I don't think it's ever as bad as it looks. I mean, I know we all saw the Daniel Jones picks. I don't think it's ever as bad as it looks when you go viral like that. But I'm sorry, Daniel Jones. I'm just not a believer. Yeah. I like some things about the Giants. Like you talk about pass rushes. They've got a great one. I'm excited to see what Malik Neighbors does. I don't think the Giants are going to be the worst team in the league, but I do think they will have a new quarterback next year.
Positive comments. Yeah. Dave Helman, good stuff.
A ray of sunshine over here.
Yes, indeed. Host of the NFL on Fox podcast, writes for Fox Sports. We got a lot of coverage online. It's tremendous. Thank you, Dave. Have a great, well, it's only Thursday, but have a great weekend anyway, man.
Anytime, y'all. I appreciate it.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.